Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Formula One 2021 Career Motor, my driver career, I should say, here as we're getting ready for race number 4 on the season here in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, one of my favorite tracks to drive, so I was very excited coming into this one. Once again, we've been making some R&D improvements on the Haas F1 team. For today's episode, though, we got something special. For the first time in this series, we have modded the game. We have changed up the Haas livery just a little bit. Now we've changed the blue to black, basically. I think it looks really good, and it's just kind of a part of the storyline we got going on right now. This little modded livery was made by Vixen. I will post his Twitter in the description, so make sure to check him out. But looks great, just a minor little change to the car, and I can tell you I got some big plans in terms of what we're going to do for this My Driver storyline in the future, so stay tuned on that. But focusing on what we got coming at you guys here today. The weather for qualifying was looking a little bit wet, so I was interested to see how that's going to pan out for us. Now, as you can see, it looks like it's going to be a rain-filled early start to the session for qualifying now as we come through into practice 1. Like I said, big fan of this racetrack here in the streets of Azerbaijan. I've always loved driving this back from F1 2017, I think, was the first time it came into the F1 games. So excited for this one now as we would get these practice programs underway. So got to grips pretty quick. I've been dealing with the understeer issue quite a bit so far this season with this Haas car. And of course, it's just a thing in general with the handling of these F1 cars in this game, but I really didn't deal with it too much here in Azerbaijan in practice, so I was pretty satisfied with what I was feeling, just getting to grips with the track. Every single time I've gone to a track so far in this game, it's just felt like a whole new learning experience compared to past F1 games, but I felt like I got up to par the quickest in Azerbaijan, and I think it was showing with the times I was putting down. We made some qualifying attempts and they estimated I was going to qualify dead last, so it wasn't looking good in terms of the times I was putting down, but I still overall felt pretty confident. I have a little moment right there where I spun the car out in practice. This corner you got to be really careful with the braking, so I had to keep that in mind now as we run up over that curb. But overall, looking pretty good now as we're gonna look at the standings after practice 1. We were P12 and we had beat one of our competitors, George Russell, on the same compounded tire as well as Nicholas Latifi, so that made me as well pretty confident going into the qualifying session. But of course, when it's going to rain, who knows how that's going to go. But I did some quick practice stuff after. I didn't do this in the first 3 episodes, but I realized, you know what, we can do this and gain some serious resource points. But did another lap in P3 or practice 3, and you can see the order there. Sonoda was actually P1, but we unfortunately were down in P19, just barely beat George Russell. As you can see, both myself and Schumacher contribute pretty well there. We got more resource points than Schumacher was able to bring, but we still get almost 1,800 points now as we come through into the qualifying session from Azerbaijan. And you can see it is raining here in Azerbaijan. I have no experience yet in F1 2021 in the rain, so wasn't quite sure what to expect. This is going to be my first time. Haven't done any practice in the rain whatsoever, so I was a little bit concerned about that. And I had read that the AI are similar in the rain to previous games where they're just unbelievably faster than the player no matter what, so I was a little bit concerned about hearing that, thinking I'm probably going to be the slowest guy here in qualifying. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. But you look at the weather there, it looks like it's going to stop raining potentially by the end of this session. So it's going to be crucial to go as late as possible in the end of Q1 here. So definitely something I was keeping an eye on. My first lap was definitely a rough one to say the least, as it was my first legitimate lap in the rain on F1 2021, and it wasn't pretty. I was losing grip like crazy and just trying to make sure we just hang on to the car and keep it going in the right direction, and we were the slowest guy, hands down. I ran a second lap now later in the session. I was planning to do 2 laps right here, but there was actually some trouble as I was getting my lap underway. Antonio Giovinazzi into the castle section actually put it in the barrier. His tire was gone. He was out of the session. The caution was out. I came rolling through here a little bit later. You can see the debris around the course, so that was very unfortunate for him and the Alfa Romeo. So he is going to be out, and I had Lando Norris breathing down my neck here behind me, but I didn't care. I was going to hold him up because we ran 2.3 seconds faster, but we got around in time to where we get to run one more lap. We're only P18, after that. So still a lot of work to do, but we went later than our competitors of George Russell or Nicholas Latifi, Giovinazzi, of course, and then Kimi Räikkönen. So I was pretty confident right here we have a chance, and I was pushing it to the limit here in the final sector, giving Lando Norris a nice tow down this long front straightaway as well. He's already P8. He's going to make it into the next round anyways, but we are almost 0.8 of a second faster than our last lap just because the conditions are getting better, and we make it into Q2 here as we are the last driver in P15. We beat our teammate Schumacher into the next round by less than 1/10 of a second. So Schumacher obviously has been running really well against us, but we beat him in the last episode in Monaco just kind of by strategy to get us out in front. But we came into Q2 and it was obvious we were going to qualify 15th. I knew I was going to have nothing for these guys, so it was just about getting the car around us, putting a lap in. This is kind of give us a baseline idea. I didn't care how good or bad the lap was. I was going to call it after one lap anyway, so we set our lap. It was definitely not the best in the world, a 1:39.9 I think it said there, and then we call it there. So we're going to jump into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
To Baku. This was the arena, if you think back to 2017, of one of the most eventful races of modern history, with controversy behind the safety car, last-second overtakes, and a historic podium for Williams and for Lance Stroll. So let's find out what lies in store for us this year. It's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. With 20 turns and a length of 3.7 miles, Baku City Circuit in the heart of the Azerbaijan capital is a real test of a driver's endurance, patience, and precision. 90-degree corners through Sector 1 lead into a tightening uphill sprint as we start to circle around the old city. Then a 1.4-mile chase flat out through Sector 3 towards the finish line. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday and will start from pole position. And it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Ricciardo, Max Verstappen and Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, Fernando Alonso, the rookie, Vettel, Räikkönen, Antonio Giovinazzi and George Russell, Latifi and Mick Schumacher. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
There you have it from David Croft as well as Anthony Davidson as we're getting ready to go lights out here from Azerbaijan. An interesting strategy for us. We're going to actually be starting on the hard tire and be going to the medium tire. So instead of a two-stop from mediums to soft, we're going to go from just hard to medium. And hopefully that will get us here out front, or not out front of course, but in a better position than maybe what we would be at probably 17th to 18th or so. So we're hopefully going to be able to use this strategy to our advantage and maybe even get like a top 15 out of this if it all works out to plan. So getting ready to grid up here, got off the grid pretty well now. So P14 definitely did not expect to be starting up here. Of course the grid penalty there, it looked like for Sebastian Vettel, puts us up into that 14th starting position. Different now actually being stopped for a good 2 seconds before the lights come on, because usually we're 20th place and as soon as we stop the car it is lights on. But here we go, getting ready to go green. It's Lando Norris in the McLaren on pole here from Azerbaijan, and it's lights out and we are underway. Norris P1, his teammate of Ricciardo, a strong qualifying effort as well there in P4. It's the two Mercedes of Hamilton and Bottas just behind him, battling it out side by side now. As you can see, Hamilton might have that advantage there on that right hand side on the exit of turns 2, and sure enough Lewis Hamilton will get clear of his teammate of Valtteri Bottas there for that second spot. So a great launch though for Lando Norris, who is already well out in front. Does he have the speed to hold on to a race win? I don't know. McLaren, of course, not the fastest car in the field, but they do seem to have some good straight line speed, and Lando looking for his very first F1 Grand Prix victory. Now as you look a little bit further down the field, you can see myself going at it with the Alfa Romeo there as Schumacher is trying to work on passing Nicholas Latifi, but I was under attack here from Kimi Räikkönen for the time being. I go very defensive into there, and I was dealing with a ton of understeer here on this opening lap, the most understeer I had dealt with all race weekend. So that kind of caught me way off guard. Now George George Russell was up into the 17th spot, putting some pressure on. But by the time we came through to the end of this first lap, the car started to feel a little bit normal again. Obviously, we're on the hard tires. I wasn't really surprised that this car didn't really fire off very well compared to a guy like George Russell or Kimi Räikkönen, who's on the medium tire. Then you got the cars in front of us who are all on soft tires, like Antonio Giovinazzi, who was able to pass me on the start, as well as Sebastian Vettel. And Vettel would actually continue moving forwards, but his teammate of Lance Stroll was falling backwards now, as we're right on the back of him and Giovinazzi now, as clearly Stroll off the pace. Not sure what was going on there, because after this moment he actually picked it back up, so it was a bit of a weird few moments there for Lance, but like I said, he would kind of get back into gear, get going in the right direction here on the second lap of the Grand Prix. But I'm just really trying to hold my own. Obviously, I know that the guy behind me, George Russell, has that medium tire advantage, so it was just a matter of time until he was able to get past me. I lost some ground to the car's head. Giovinazzi, by the way, had already come into the pit lane, so he comes in very early in this Grand Prix. But now with DRS enabled, I knew that Russell probably here on this next lap or so is going to have a legitimate opportunity to get past now. As you can see me continuously losing time to Lance Stroll, who's on the hard tire along with myself, so that could explain why he was under attack there from Giovinazzi on that second lap of the Grand Prix. So now on lap 4, still holding my own, but Russell was inching closer and closer, now about half a second between him and I. And down this front straightaway here, coming to the end of lap 4, I didn't even try to fight him here. I just knew it was the inevitable. I knew it was coming, so I let him go by there in the Williams and just settle in behind him into turns one, as Kimi Räikkönen tries to put some pressure on our gearbox there just behind. Schumacher, for some reason, was really far off here in the start of this race now. He was also on the hard tire, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but I was just surprised to see how far off he was here. Something wasn't quite right for him. So then Kimi Räikkönen now on the end of lap 5 has DRS. We have DRS as well, but similar situation. I didn't want to fight him too much, as a bunch of drivers were now coming into the pit lane, as we're going to be side by side with Räikkönen in turns 1, as some drivers like Max Verstappen are just coming out of the pit lane right now. He comes out just in front of myself and Kimi, and then we got Lewis Hamilton just behind as well, behind Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. So watch out for Hamilton, who won the first 2 races of the season but DNF last episode due to an engine failure. So of course Lewis looking for some redemption after that now, as he was able to make a pass on me, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Fight back a little bit there on the left-hand side, but other than that, we had absolutely nothing in. I was going to have the advantage of DRS, but I decided to obviously not take that because he's so much faster. Then a little bit later on lap 7, Sergio Perez there in the Red Bull is going to sneak by on the left-hand side, and we're in that point in the race where we're on way different strategies, so we're just having to get out of the way now. It's actually in front of us on lap 8. There's trouble here, and it's Lewis Hamilton for the second episode in a row having an engine failure. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, trying to become an 8-time world champion. Well, it might have to wait here, because he is done for the day. 2 episodes in a row. He goes from winning the first 2 races to DNFing the next 2 now, and that gives the opportunity now to Valtteri Bottas, who tied the point standings after the last episode, to now take over the championship standing lead now, as I would get out of the way for my guy Sebastian Vettel there. And then we come through down the front straightaway on lap 10, and now here goes Yuki Tsunoda on the right hand side, just of course more pace in his car right now, a medium tire for him. But everybody else in the field pretty much is on a 2-tire or a 2-stop strategy compared to my 1-stop strategy, and we're getting ready now on lap 13 to get our first and only pit stop out of the way here on the day now, as Daniel Ricciardo would get out of the way of him. I kind of got into a routine of moving over in that same little spot and getting out of the way for people, and we got out of the way of the McLaren. This McLaren team today in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix looking very, very fast. They can definitely compete with both Red Bull and Mercedes. Now is actually at the end of the same lap, Ricciardo comes into the pit lane, and then our pit window officially becomes open as we come out just behind Esteban Ocon there for the Alpine. So on the end of lap 14 though, Valtteri Bottas now in front of me, he got by as well. We would come through into the pit lane to make our pit stop. Once again, I gave up a good chunk of time there coming in because I'm just very cautious, don't want to get a speeding penalty coming into the pit lane. So I gave up some time right there, but I'm confident with the strategy. I really feel like we can get a good finish out of this. And of course, when I say a good finish, I mean like 15th or 16th, which is just exceptional for our Haas F1 team at this point in the season. We've been making a lot of R&D upgrades, but we still have a long ways to go just to get to Alfa Romeo. But we are definitely no longer the worst car on the grid, I don't think. We're definitely the second worst car on the grid from what the data is showing. But Schumacher now on the medium tire as well. His mediums are a lot older than ours, but he came out just behind myself and stuck with me for the first kind of out lap out of the pit lane. Of course, getting these brakes and tires warmed back up. But now on lap 16 of this Grand Prix, we're up into P14 due to Lance Stroll coming into the pit lane as well as an Alfa Romeo. And then on the end of lap 16, our teammate Schumacher comes back into the pit lane for his final pit stop on the day. Now as Jeff comes over the radio, tells me that once again there's some type of engine issue, but once again for the third episode in a row it would get fixed within the lap, so it really didn't affect me whatsoever, thank goodness. I'm surprised we haven't had a failure yet. I'm sure it's just a matter of time until we do, to be honest. But now we come through to lap 17, getting out of the way again for Lance Stroll there, who's on the medium tire. He's going to the end of the race, so that was just a downright for position right there, but I had nothing for him. So then we come to lap 18. Antonio Giovinazzi had actually run me down here. Less than a second between us now as we got past Esteban Ocon up into 14th place with 8 laps to go in this Grand Prix. So now to lap 20 with 7 laps to go, Giovinazzi even closer, and I'm realizing he might actually get us there for 15th, but then we got Ocon coming, so it's looking like right now we're on track for a 16th, 17th place finish, which honestly I wouldn't even be too disappointed with given the situation with this Haas F1 car. So probably not the strategy. The strategy is definitely not going to work out like we were originally hoping it would. Now as we get a quick late race update, Lando Norris continuing to lead the way. He's dominating this Grand Prix over Leclerc, Verstappen, Gasly, Perez down there in 5th place, Alonso P6, Bottas in P7. Leclerc is on an interesting strategy. He is falling off pretty quick right now, so he's probably not even going to finish on the podium, would be my guess now. As you see, Bottas 7th, Sainz 8th, Vettel 9th, Daniel Ricciardo way off of Norris, just like he is in real life at some points this season as you look through the rest of the grid, and that goes back to us there in 14th place. But by the time we come through to the end of this 20th lap, Giovinazzi now is going to make that move on my right hand side. He has help from the DRS. Once again, I realized I didn't have much for him. I couldn't hold him off for 6 more laps, so I just let him go there as we go down into turns 1. Ocon and Raikkonen, the last 2 drivers behind us now, and that should be it for if we could potentially lose positions, that is, but we're going to fight them really hard once they get here. Now as we have that DRS on Giovinazzi, but I wasn't forcing the issue too much, but up front in 6th and 7th, Leclerc and Bottas side by side into the corner. They actually crash out of the Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel involved, 3 drivers DNF, Ricciardo as well piles in, he is out of nowhere. The safety car is out, 4 drivers just crashed. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, Bottas in the Mercedes, Ricciardo in the McLaren, Vettel in the Aston Martin. What a moment. We're going to have a bunch of different angles to look at right here. So safety car was out, we were going to sail, but now we were up into 12th place after that. But there's another look at it. Leclerc hops the curb and then up into the wall he goes, and Bottas had nowhere to go because he was already alongside of him. A multi-car crash right here. Here's an onboard with Leclerc right there. Just hits the curbing, a big mistake, and then into the wall he goes. Here's an onboard from Valtteri Bottas. He makes a move up the right-hand side, and right here is where the mistake happens. Leclerc's front wheels are off the ground. You're not turning that car at that point, and that would lead them both head on into the wall, and there goes Vettel into it. Late reaction from Sebastian. There's his onboard right there, and you see that Leclerc's teammate of Carlos Sainz barely avoided that. Here you see a double move from Bottas to try and get to the left, then he goes to the right, and it just doesn't work out for either of them, and that's going to keep Hamilton and Bottas tied in the championship lead. But now Verstappen has an opportunity to take the championship lead as you would get back underway for only a 2-lap dash, as now we have a chance to go for P9 here on Giovinazzi as we lunge up the right or left-hand side, and clear him out of turns 1. A lot of oversteer there, some grip loss on the exit of the corner, but we make the move work, and up into 9th place we go. What was looking like a strategy that was going to put us down to maybe 16th, 17th, well, now here we are after a big incident, finding ourselves in the points in the Haas F1 car. What a day this could turn into if we can hang on for another lap and 3/4 or so. So now we came through to the front straightaway, approaching the final lap. Norris still leading over Verstappen and Perez, side by side between George Russell and Lance Stroll. We have full overtake on the ERS, and we have a huge run. We look to the left-hand side there of George Russell as we start this final lap. Stroll comes over to cover myself into turns 1. A nice defensive move from him, and he gets clear of Russell. We're side by side with the Williams driver. Both of us have a chance for incredible days here as we come through out of turn 2. We clear George Russell, both of us looking for the first points on the season, and I think of our F1 careers as well here as we came through around the final important corner here, the final tricky one at least, and it's Lando Norris coming through. A huge day in Formula 1. Lando Norris wins his first F1 Grand Prix. Verstappen takes over the championship lead, and the Haas of myself and the Williams of George Russell will both come through to pick up our first ever points in Formula 1. What a day for us here in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Who gets driver of the day though? It's got to be between myself and George Russell. I'm sure it's going to be George Russell with driver of the day, but we have one heck of a post-race celebration to watch here with Lando Norris.
Another Azerbaijan Grand Prix, a fascinating race and a well-deserved victory. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave him the edge over the competition today?
Well, the safety car completely changed the race, didn't it? It's hard to say exactly what would have happened without it, but there's no question that they came out of that situation in a good position.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
What a race in Azerbaijan. Everything changed there in the last 5-6 laps of this Grand Prix. Verstappen takes over the championship lead after that performance there to get him in second place. So the championship leader hasn't even won this season. But Lando, wow, I mean, just shocked everybody. He was just downright faster than everyone. So a great effort by him. Ricciardo, by the way, is not out of the race. I thought he was, but no, he continued on and finished 14th place. So you see Verstappen has a 7-point lead over Bottas as well as Hamilton. Perez up there in the mix as well as we get our first points now, 4 points for us, and we move Haas up to 8th place in the constructors with that effort. Of course, we got lucky to get in that position to get points, but we executed really well there on the restart now as we have an interview with Claire here as she asks, of course we're ecstatic with how we performed right there. I mean, just absolutely thrilled with that effort. Now as our teammate Schumacher, he had a bit of a rough one, and I just hope it doesn't demotivate him too much really, and that was it with Claire. So it was only 2 questions from her, and now we move into the end of the episode. Just, I mean, unbelievable. I could not believe we ended up in the points at the end of that race. I mean, even with 5 laps to go, it's like there's no way, and then just that incident happens, changed everything, and just very ecstatic with that. And then this leads into the next episode where we go to our home race, the Canadian GP. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Canadian GP in 2020 in real life or in 2021, but at least we get it in the game. So excited for my home Grand Prix. Feels weird doing these races so early in the season, like Monaco and Spain, as well as Canada, but it's just the way the schedule is. As always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch this episode and other ones on the channel. A great effort from Lando Norris, is of course best finish all time there, his first win in Formula 1, as well as he got the fastest lap. So that'll do it for us, and of course there you see the quick standings on the screen. And before we end it, I just want to say thank you to the Go On Racing members on the channel of MJ, Joseph 9001, Timothy Arline, Bubba Jr., Brett Durward, Dark Gengar Gaming, AJ Vasura, Russell Dixon, Kenneth Barnett, Danny9302, King Matt XL, Speed Demon 341, as well as Illinois Diecast. I appreciate you guys' support so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.